Now it gives me great pleasure to welcome our first speaker, Najmi Parveen. Najmi was a member of the steering group which developed the action plan. Najmi has been a director of PATH for the last 18 years with a background of education and teaching with a strong focus of supporting people into employment.
Good morning. It's good to see a lot of people here this morning. I wasn't sure how many people would be here at the morning session, but it's good to see a good turnout, and thanks for inviting me to speak today. Basically, what I want to say is that trainees and apprentices have to be part of the narrative for any question around how we can get the future generation involved in housing. And at PATH Scotland, we're endeavouring to do so by recruiting trainees from a black and minority ethnic background, both to address the diversity imbalance in Scottish housing and to involve future generations in housing. Our trainees undertake a 3-year work placement in a registered social landlord or local authority housing department, and they complete an academic qualification on a day release basis. The traineeships have been very successful. We work very well with the housing associations that we work with, and 85% of our trainees gain employment in the housing sector post-placement. We recognise, however, that it's not just about access to housing, it's about progression. And currently there are no people from a black and minority ethnic background within senior positions in registered social landlords, for example, directors of housing associations, although they did used to be. So we run a developing management and leadership programme across sectors, and members of the Scottish Parliament Equal Opportunities Committee recently visited that programme as part of their inquiry into race, ethnicity and employment. The report, Removing Barriers, Race, Ethnicity and Employment, stated that the committee were greatly encouraged by their visit and consider PATH Scotland to be an excellent example of good practice in promoting race equality in the workplace. We're also in 2 of the recommendations, which is absolutely great. Going back to the SFHA plan, it sets out the ambitions shared with partners in the sector to increase the number and range of modern apprentices available. And obviously they'll definitely help to build a motivated workforce within housing as an attractive employment destination for young people to aspire to. And we're very pleased, PATH Scotland's very pleased to be involved in the action plan, and very pleased to be invited to work with SFHA, which builds on the legacy of the Apprentice Challenge. So the steering group involves PATH Scotland, Skills Development Scotland, the Chartered Institute of Housing, ALACHO, that's the Association of Local Authority Chief Housing Officers, SHARE, Employers in Voluntary Housing, and a number of other bodies. And the steering group has also received a lot of support across key housing associations in Scotland. And obviously their input remains critical to the success of the action plan, which will be rolled out over the next 3 years. I don't want to say too much today because I know that there are other people speaking on the action plan. So I'll stop there, but if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I know we've got limited time. Thank you, and I'll hand back to the chair.
Thank you, Najmi, and for all your help with the steering group as well. I'm sure you provided a lot of valuable contribution towards that. Okay, now I'd like to welcome our second speaker, Sarah Boyack, Head of Public Affairs at the SFHA since the end of February. Sarah has a long career in politics, planning and local government. She will introduce the apprentices that are here today, who a few of them will share their stories with you as well.
Thanks very much, Susan. Well, we are really proud in SFHA to have the launch of our Apprentice Action Plan today. It's a really significant moment for us. We're proud of the fact that over half of our members are already working with apprentices, and that half of those members have been taking apprentices for over 5 years now. So today's really important for us. We had a great response to the survey on which the plan is based, And we had 97 responses from organisations in every single local authority area in Scotland. So it gives us a really good basis to plan for. And that means that we are able to think about how best to take forward opportunities for young people across the country. And it's important for them and their future careers and their communities, but it's also really important for us as a housing sector. We were talking about succession planning yesterday. A key part of that has to be young people getting access to skills and training and confidence. Now, you've seen the young people in front of us. You've seen the movie stars on screen. Next up, we're going to hear from 3 of our young apprentices directly to hear about their personal experiences. So I want to welcome up onto the stage Joy Henderson from NG Homes, Megan Morrison from Fine Homes, and Mark Docherty from Angus Housing Association. At this point, come on down, and a big round of applause, please.
Morning everyone, my name is Joy Henderson. I'm currently a housing assistant with NG Homes, which is a housing association that has over 5,000 stock throughout Springburn, Barlornock, Postle Park and Park House. Before becoming a housing assistant, I was a modern apprentice in 2012, and that's what I've been asked to talk to you about today. In November 2012, I was 17 and I was at my final year of school trying to decide what I should do when I left. All my friends had it all figured out, they knew what they wanted to do, what unis and colleges they were off to, and it just wasn't the case for me. And that's when I came across an apprenticeship position within NG Homes. I had never considered a career in housing before, for the simple fact that I didn't know much about it. It's not something you really hear about throughout school, but it sounded really interesting, so I went for it, and thankfully I was offered the 2-year apprenticeship position, along with 3 other apprentices. Throughout the 2 years, I gained so much knowledge, skills and confidence. Myself and the other apprentices got to move between the different departments, for example finance, investment and HR, which was great as it gave you an insight into each individual department and how they came together as an organisation. However, my favourite was housing services, because I like dealing with the customers face to face and providing that service. I also completed 2 housing qualifications, an SVQ level 2 and a CIH level 2, which are really good to have under your belt. Throughout the apprenticeship, I felt I learned so much more than I could have at school or college, as you're actually learning on the job in a busy working environment, which for me was a much more effective way of learning. I think apprentices is a great opportunity, not just for young people to develop and learn new skills, but also for the organisations taking them on, as young people eager to learn can bring a lot to the table. Once my apprenticeship was finished, late 2014, I then applied for a job within the company as a customer service officer, which I did for over a year, before moving on to my current position as a housing assistant, which I've been doing for just under a year now, and I hope to keep pursuing my career in housing. Thank you.
Good morning everyone, my name is Mark Docherty. As of the beginning of March this year, I became a permanent full-time member of staff for Angus Housing Association. This was an achievement made directly possible by the original position being advertised as a modern apprenticeship, which I began in March 2016. Before I started the Angus Housing Association, at the very beginning of 2016, I worked full-time in a hotel. I was as indecisive as I was in high school, but 3 years after leaving, I was still contemplating whether or not I should return to full-time education or look for full-time employment that I felt better suited to. Thankfully, the vacancy for modern apprenticeship opened up at Angus. I was no longer feeling torn between gaining additional qualifications and gaining productive work experience. I knew I could attain both through the modern apprenticeship scheme. I sent in an application and received details for a face-to-face interview. The more I prepared for this, the more confident I became that I wanted the position. Once in the role, I was trained on the job by my colleagues in the customer services department. I then worked towards gaining an SVQ level 2 in customer services with the assistance of my assessor Ryan of MGT training. To gain this qualification, I had to build a portfolio of work to complete units I had selected relevant to my day-to-day work, which I'd selected at the beginning of my apprenticeship, such as processing customer service complaints and dealing with customers in writing or electronically. I wrote reflective accounts of my work experiences and had multiple workplace observations carried out by Ryan to complete these units. The portfolio was stored online, so there was no files covering my desk and I could access it from home or at work. Ryan would travel to me to go over the work when necessary, so there was minimal disruption to my working days. I completed the SVQ far quicker than expected, around halfway into my year contract, and was fortunate enough to be put through another, this time an SVQ Level 3 in Customer Services, which I attained shortly after I completed my one-year apprenticeship contract. Working in customer services gives me insight into each department as we work closely with them all and undertake a different type of work for each. I thoroughly enjoy this as I feel it gives me a broader understanding of the association. To give some background on Angus Housing Association, we have over 1,800 properties located throughout Dundee and Angus, with an office in Dundee and another in Arbroath where I'm based. Fortunately for me, they have a history of employing young individuals with aspirations for a career in social housing through the likes of skill seekers and now modern apprenticeships. The working environment is so good that more than one former skill seeker working at Angus has been with us for over 10 years and have progressed to officer posts within the association. This fills me with optimism that I may achieve the same level of career progression in the future with the skills, experience and qualifications I obtained at Angus and will continue to gain moving forward. I feel modern apprenticeships are a chance to not only invest in the future of young people, but are a chance to ensure that all associations create a source of productive professionals moving forward. Thanks directly to my positive experiences here at Angus, I know that I will follow a career in housing and hope to one day reach a senior position. As I'm sure many of you in the audience are in a position to at least consider filling a vacancy with a modern apprenticeship, I would urge you to do so. It has the potential to shape the future of a young person and your association for the better. Thank you.
Good morning everyone. My name is Megan Morrison and I was the winner of the SFHA Apprentice Challenge last year. I currently work as a housing and admin trainee at Fine Homes Housing Association on the Isle of Bute. Fine Homes covers housing stock across Bute, Kibble, Kintyre and Mid Argyll. We have an approximate housing stock of 1,500 across Argyll and Bute. I was the first employed apprentice at Fine Homes and I started my modern apprenticeship on the 10th of August 2015 and I finished on the 9th of August 2016. I submitted an application form and undertook 2 face-to-face interviews. I was up against another 16 applicants, so I had to prepare myself to stand out. This figure of 16 applicants highlights the interest that young adults have in completing an apprenticeship on Bute alone. On completion of my apprenticeship, I was offered a full-time permanent post in the housing department. There are many reasons why I applied for the modern apprenticeship. The main reason is because the Isle of Bute is a small island situated on the west coast of Scotland, so opportunities like this don't come around a lot. After my research into the apprenticeship, the things that really appealed to me was that I would be learning on the job, gaining work and life experience, I would be getting paid, educated, qualified and trained. I also chose to do the apprenticeship as I could retain a possible career in my organisation once my apprenticeship was done. Personally, I'm really interested in how people think and behave and in using logical approaches to solve problems, make decisions and find answers. My research into housing really enthused me and I felt that this career was perfect for me. I undertook my housing qualifications at Share College and completed my CIH Level 2 Certificate in Housing Practice and my SVQ Level 2 in Housing. My course contained of 4 units, a total of 6 written assignments and the production of a portfolio covering a housing-related activity. During my apprenticeship, I was interacting with our applicants when assisting them complete an application form and processing it until it reaches a stage when the applicants become tenants. Most of all, I enjoyed helping them out, whether it was a housing or maintenance inquiry, dealing with antisocial behaviour or reporting estate management issues. Although my apprenticeship was housing-based, I also obtained experience in all the departments within the organisation, and this helped me grasp the full picture of how a housing association works together. I shadowed colleagues in the various departments within the organisation, and this allowed me to gain work experience in reception, finance, maintenance and rent arrears. Each day I was given more responsibility and tasks, which was challenging at times but very rewarding. I learned something new every day, which I believe was building and strengthening my self-confidence. Working in the environment was a real eye-opener into the work industry. Personally, I think that nowadays there is so much stigma and pressure for young adults to go to university or college. And when I was doing my exams at school, there was never any emphasis on going on to complete an apprenticeship. I think a lot of young folk don't realise that there's so many opportunities and different career paths that you can go down with an apprenticeship. And if it wasn't for my employers enrolling on the apprenticeship programme, I wouldn't be standing here today. This is why I highly encourage employers that the housing sector needs to increase the number and type of modern apprenticeships it employs, as you're giving a young person like me a chance in becoming successful. Recently, I have just found out that Fine Homes Committee has approved for another modern apprentice to be recruited on Bute. I'm very excited for this to happen. An apprenticeship is a well-established way to build a better workforce as we improve productivity, morale, staff retention and service quality. Apprentices bring new thinking, fresh ideas and energy. My ambition from now is to continue to work hard to achieve my goals and life ambitions. I hope to become a housing officer one day, and who knows, maybe even a chief executive. My apprenticeship has helped me decide on the career path that I wish to pursue. I really hope that I can encourage young people to apply for apprenticeships, as you can gain great success just like mine. The world is your oyster, as they say. Thank you.
That's brilliant, thank you. Well, you've just heard it yesterday with the succession planning event, and I think we have at least 3 potential chief executives lining up in the front row this morning, and there are a whole host of other apprentices. Who knows where you're all going to end up? I think you'll all agree that was really inspiring. Wouldn't it be great if all of our housing association members and co-ops across the country had the opportunity of the skills and talent and commitment of young people like that? So let's think about what we can do to make that happen. If we look at the skills that young people are learning, there's a whole raft of key jobs that we need to fill for the future. And we can see the experiences coming through in business administration, general housing management, construction, customer service, and the challenge is there. I love the way that the 3 apprentices didn't just tell us their story, but they told us to get on and make sure that there was another generation of apprentices coming behind them. So that's our challenge, I think, for the rest of the day to make this happen. Need to hand back across to Susan, and then we can hear from our next 2 speakers. But big round of applause to our fantastic apprentices. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and a huge thanks to Megan, Mark and Joy for telling your stories there. It's fantastic to hear that you've all gone on to secure permanent posts within organisations as well. Okay, so I'll now move on to introduce the 3rd speaker, Katie Hutton, who's a Director of National Training Programme for Skills Development. Katie will share her experience with Apprentice Challenge and Skills Development Scotland's ongoing role in promoting modern apprentices across the housing sector.
Thanks. Thanks very much, and good morning everyone, and thanks to the SFHA for once again providing me with the opportunity of addressing the annual conference. For those of you who are not aware of Skills Development Scotland, we're Scottish Government's national skills agency, and you maybe know us for offering careers advice in and out of schools, and we also promote, fund and organise the development of apprenticeships in Scotland. What I'd like to do is give you an update of what's been happening in 2 particular areas over the last year in expanding the range of apprenticeships. And like the action plan and the other speakers this morning, I'd like to throw out a challenge to you in terms of your involvement. I'm deliberately not going to speak about modern apprenticeships this morning because there is no better advocate than the apprentices. You saw it in the film and you heard it from the 3 speakers that we had. I would be a pale imitation of that. So what's been happening in terms of expansion? Well, since last year we've been working really hard with partner schools, colleges, universities on expanding the apprenticeship offer. Turning to foundation apprenticeships, these offer a new qualification based on a different work-based learning experience whilst at school that develops knowledge, skills and competence. It's a new choice offered to pupils within their senior phase curriculum, and it's taken alongside other school subjects. Young people undertaking the foundation apprenticeship spend part of their time in school, in college and in the workplace, and it broadens out the range of opportunities to them post-school, and it's really built on the good practice within modern apprenticeships. And again, people can go post-school directly into a job for accelerated progression within a related modern apprenticeship, having completed some of the elements in the foundation stage, or for progression on to something else we're going to speak about later briefly, a graduate level apprenticeship, or to continue on to other forms of further learning at university or college. And we've also been working hard with universities over this past year, and I'm pleased to say that 13 universities now accept successful completion of a foundation apprenticeship as part of their entry requirements. 10 types of foundation apprenticeships are available within schools. That includes things like software development, creative and digital skills, business, health and social care, and a further 2 are available from August 2018. And there has been significant expansion of numbers through developing the regional partnerships that we have with the local authority education departments, schools, colleges, training providers and industry. So from the initial 2 pathfinders in August 2014, there's been an increase in the number of colleges engaged from 2 to 25. All local authorities now will be offering it in the school system from August this year. 150 plus schools are planned to deliver it from August within their curriculum, and the frameworks available, as I say, have moved from 1 to 10, and we're planning to have about just under 2,000 pupils planned to undertake a foundation apprenticeship from August. From the pilot phase of the first cohort of 66 pupils who've completed thus far, we've had very positive destinations. 21% of them are still in school, and we'll track what they do because they started it in S4. But 33% of them are in employment and an MA, 29% are in FE, and 17% in higher education. And our ambition, and the Deputy First Minister announced in March of this year, 5,000 people, there's an ambition of 5,000 pupils starting a foundation apprenticeship every year by 2019. Also, since last year, we've introduced our first pilot in graduate level apprenticeships. The graduate is employed and gains their degree, and there's 4 types at the moment, covering engineering, civil engineering, on offer now in 8 higher education institutions. Will be delivering them across Scotland this year, and that's also going to expand. And there is an aim to have at least 4,000 graduate level apprenticeships offered by employers with universities within the next few years. So again, this is building on the great example of modern apprenticeships, earn while you learn. My challenge to you is that the sector's expansion plan mentions a lot about an ageing workforce, and we've heard about succession planning already. As an organisation, we're tasked with working with a range of industries to identify their skill needs and develop action plans like SFH have done. And let me tell you, you're not alone in having an ageing workforce. There are a lot more industries out there facing into the same issues. So I would recommend thinking very carefully about how you reach into and how you influence your suppliers to engage local communities and involvement in apprenticeships. If you haven't already, I would urge you to develop these linkages. And if you are already, I would think about deepening those linkages, becoming involved in things like foundation and graduate level apprenticeships, work experience, and obviously modern apprenticeship. And also about how you articulate your career pathways within this industry to excite and energise your future workforce, and also to use apprenticeships and work-based learning to develop your existing workforce. You may be doing great work on your own, but it could be even better in connection with others, and I think the SFHA plan developed by the group provides a great platform for that. And I think one of the great themes within that plan is not to go out and duplicate things that are going on. There are things in place that we worked with partners to make it easier for you to make those connections. So in collaboration with the local DYW groups, we've developed an online tool called Marketplace, which will enable you to offer as employers placements and work tasters in schools. We've got our vacancy website for apprenticeship.scot that people wishing to become an apprentice can look up and apply for vacancies, but also that employers can upload their vacancies. And we'll also be enhancing the information on that. and also get involved as employers and apprentices in our campaigns such as Scottish Apprenticeship Week and Learning Through Work Week to showcase the sector and what you're doing and the careers that are available there. We've also funded some companies to develop and showcase the work in promoting diversity in apprenticeship recruitment, and the Weekly Group have been an exemplar of that. And also BMIS, CREAR enable a whole host of groups are working with us to develop connections to their clients and communities. And we're keen to work with you, so if there is a service you don't see that we could reasonably provide, or something that's not hitting the mark for you, then let us know. I'd just like to finish by thanking the apprentices themselves, and as I say, they're just the best ambassadors you could wish for work-based learning. I'd like to thank the housing associations who support them, but Diane Cooper and the steering group who worked to develop the expansion plan, and also Mary for her support for apprenticeships throughout the years and giving it such a prominent place within the work of the Federation, including this annual conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. That was really interesting and very informative. I would just like to remind delegates that you can ask questions using the web link, and you can vote for any which you would like discussed towards the end of the session. Now on to our final speaker, Hugh McAloon. I would like to welcome Hugh, who's the Deputy Director for Working Skills.
Thanks. Good morning. I'm really excited to be here today. I've been looking to engage with the Housing Association movement for a while, but I've never been in the sort of job where I could do it. But this is actually a great chance. And the reason I want to do it is, before I start talking about apprenticeships, I want to talk about my own experience. So I grew up in Easterhouse and moved there in the 70s with my family and lived there until the end of the 90s. And there was an absolute transformation right across Easterhouse. And it was this movement that generated that transformation. So we went from being a very uniform, badly maintained area to being an area of diversity in terms of housing, people taking real pride in their area, and feeling that their lives had been significantly improved. And all of you guys were part of making that happen, not just in a place like Easterhouse, but right across Scotland. So thank you for all of that, and thank you for inviting me today. I head up the Fair Work and Skills Division in the Scottish Government. And I guess our aim is to put in place the conditions that lead to a labour market that works for everybody. I guess there's three main strands to that. So one is that we have a diverse workforce that harnesses all of the talents available to us, and so irrespective of any characteristics such as gender, race, disability, any other status you could think of, we give people the opportunity to move into the labour market, progress and contribute. We're looking for a skilled workforce which can contribute to Scotland's economic success, and the people are equipped to use their talents and progress in work. And we're looking for fair workplaces and innovative workplaces where everybody is part of the success of the organisation they work with. So apprenticeships are a really central part to that for us. I've been working for a long time in this area with Katie. We don't count the years anymore. We've really seen the whole apprenticeship programme transform itself over the last 5-6 years. So we've seen growth, and the Scottish Government's committed to supporting and working with employers and skills development in Scotland to create 30,000 new apprenticeship opportunities a year by 2020. Katie's talked about foundation apprenticeships, which is really about illuminating the pathway to an apprenticeship, and she's talked about graduate apprenticeships, so that irrespective of which pathway you go down, you've got a chance to have a quality, high quality, relevant approach to developing your career. And I think Megan put it really well earlier on when she talked about this perception, snobbery, whatever you want to call it, about young people going to university, and if you don't go to university, that's it. I think it's great if you go to university. I went to university, but I've made the jump a long time ago in this job, that going to university is great, but it's not for everybody. There are real opportunities through the apprenticeship programme for people to get their career started, get training, but also get experience that they can apply across their career. And the apprenticeship route and the pathways we're developing are all about illuminating that pathway and giving people a chance to progress. And I don't doubt that in the row in front of me there are future chief executives of housing associations, there are future any number of roles that people could move into. It all starts from the base of your apprenticeship. So I would encourage everybody to feel proud about their apprenticeship and to take what you've learned forward to build a career, and you're actually off to a really strong start. By the time graduates of your age start coming out the workforce, you'll have 4 years of work experience. You've got a head start and you should be proud of that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the apprenticeship levy. So the apprenticeship levy is something that the UK government, within its powers, has introduced across the UK. It sees every employer with a wage bill, an annual wage bill of more than £3 million, paying 0.5% of that wage bill to the apprenticeship levy. Essentially, it's a tax on employment. It's replaced general taxation, so the income from the levy has replaced general taxation. So largely it replaces the funding that the Scottish Government, as a consequence, got from the levy. However, despite the fact that it wasn't something that we were involved in creating, we are determined to make the best of it. We consulted with employers last summer, and we got some really interesting findings from that which shaped our response. So employers who responded to our survey were very keen on foundation and graduate apprenticeships. They were very keen on maintaining the target of 30,000 high quality apprenticeships, and they were also keen that apprenticeship funding could be used to support our workforce development, including pre-employment support. And that's largely what we've laid out in our response to the levy, which was published last December. So we are going to maintain our commitment to supporting 30,000 high quality apprenticeships, growing foundation apprenticeships, growing graduate level apprenticeships. We are going to support new pre-employment support, which is very much focused about getting people into work who are traditionally disadvantaged. That's that thing about the inclusive workforce I talked about earlier. And we are going to use funding to support workforce development, including a new flexible workforce development fund, which we plan to launch in the autumn. So happy to discuss any of that, but I think the key message is there are apprenticeship opportunities available. They are not limited only to levy payers. If you are a levy payer and you've traditionally taken on a number of apprentices that's higher than your contribution, there'll be no constraints here on that. If you're a non-levy payer, there will be no constraints on your ability to take on apprentices. And the mechanisms for recruiting apprentices through SDS and the training providers are exactly the same. Happy to answer any questions on it. Just to finish off, I think, and it's again going back to your point about this perception of apprenticeships, the best people that we can deploy, I guess, to influence younger people who are still at school are you guys. You send me in, I'll look like their granddad, they're not going to listen to me. You guys have lived it, you've benefited from it. I would really encourage you all to take opportunities, and I would encourage employers here today to enable young apprentices and former apprentices to take the opportunity to go back and talk to younger people, because they'll listen to you guys. They will hear the messages which are consistently out there about university, and that's fine, as I keep saying, but to hear the benefits of apprenticeships, they will want, someone like yourself can be really influential in shaping the thinking and widening the thinking about what success looks like. And all of you are successes of this programme. you're all successes of the Housing Association movement, and I'm really glad to see you all here today. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Hugh. That was fantastic. Okay, I'm now going to, I'm a bit conscious of the time, but we're going to hand you back over to Sarah, who's going to pose some of the questions that have been raised to the panel.
Right, thank you. Now, as we've been sitting here, the audience have all been voting. And I can announce that the top question, which has been going up every few minutes, is what's the chance of housing associations getting access to some of the apprentice levy? Now, I don't know if you were talking about, there's a fund that's going to be launched in the autumn, the Flexible Workforce Development Fund.
Yep.
How do people get access to cash to make this happen?
So part of the access is just what I've said. Levy funding funds apprenticeships. It funds the training of apprentices, and exactly as things are across the UK, apprenticeship levy funding pays for apprenticeship training. So whatever size you are in Scotland, whether you're paying the levy or not, you can access some of that levy funding to train your apprentices, as you always have. The new Flexible Workforce Development Fund is likely to be restricted to levy payers. That would seem logical. It's not a massive fund at this stage. We're working out the details of it. It will be delivered through colleges across Scotland. It will be very much focused on responding to employer need. There'll be more details about that ahead of the launch. So there will be opportunities for levy payers to access some training through that, but it's all about training as it is across the UK.
Okay, that's really useful because Diane Cooper and I are meeting the Training Minister later on this month in the Scottish Government, so we will take some of the answers and the energy from today's session into that next bit of lobbying.
Probably be there when you're meeting them.
Yep. We might take the video to him as well, because I think that's a pretty good way of getting the message across.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to comment on that, Katie, in terms of funding?
I think Hugh's covered that.
Okay. The next most popular question is, what do you think is the biggest barrier to all housing organisations employing at least one modern apprentice each? Najmi, you've done some work with housing associations. What do you think the barriers are?
Well, in terms of our traineeships, some of the biggest barriers appear to be finance, restructuring, space. That there are several others, but because a lot of housing organisations take trainees or apprentices from various sources. So, for example, if they're taking someone from the Centre for Inclusive Living who deal with disability and housing, they feel that it's quite difficult to take other. Sorry.
So I've realised I should have given you a microphone. Apologies.
I feel it's quite difficult to take on other trainees. So I think competing priorities, finance is a particularly big one, restructuring. There's lots of different reasons people cite for not either taking trainees or apprentices.
Thanks. Are apprentices only available to younger people, or could returners and older people be accepted too? Do you want to answer that, Katie?
Yep. I think people conflate sometimes apprenticeships and the funding, the public funding that's available for them. So anybody of any age can be an apprentice. It's up to the employer to decide that they want them to follow a programme of work-based learning. The funding that's available is prioritised towards young people, so we give the biggest contribution rate for 16 to 19-year-olds, and also for those from care leaver and disabled backgrounds up to the age of 29, so they the highest contribution rate. It's also biased in terms of certain types of apprenticeships because there's different costs. It costs more to train an engineering apprentice than it does, say, someone doing customer service. In terms of those aged over 25, there is a priority placed on funding for some of the priority sectors that the government has identified as well. So there is a pot available. We've got to cut our cloth accordingly. So as I say, more funding given for younger age groups and those who are disabled and care leavers, but also priority for the older age groups for certain sectors.
Okay. Now, the first question I asked was about money, and the third question follows on. It sounds a bit sceptical, but is the money really there to let housing associations play their full part in training a new generation of apprentices? Do you want to leave that hanging to the wall? It's kind of not 100% sure that the money is actually there, even though you say there are some funding streams.
Well,
Do you want to take the mic?
yeah, sure. I mean, the apprenticeship funding for the training is there. Katie and ourselves have got aspirations to recruit new apprentices. We're up to 27,000 this year, and the funding is there for the training. They have to be employed. That's the whole point. And I guess that I know that's a constraint, because any employer who takes on an apprentice has to pay the wages, and housing associations are no different. There is some support available to take on, for example, disabled young people, but by and large, the beauty of the programme is that everybody sitting in the front row today has come in as an apprentice to a job that is paid. And you know, what we're not in a position to do, and I think it would dilute the programme, would be if we created some sort of training scheme that were funding there to pay the wages, the jobs wouldn't otherwise be there. So this is really about bringing in talent to the workplaces across Scotland based on the jobs that are there and filling them. And that's a challenge, but it's one.
Yeah. Just one thing that occurs to me from having actually met some of our business associates out in the stalls yesterday, the finishing service, their managing director Randall said that when he speaks to other private companies, they take on apprentices. He says to them, if we can do it, so can you. So I think maybe one of the opportunities we need to think about is using procurement more assertively. His comment was he thinks procurement should require companies that are bidding for housing work, particularly in the construction side, that they have to use apprentices, and that should be part of their bid. So
That's
maybe leave that
absolutely
sticking to the wall.
about using your supplier base to expand the range of apprenticeships on offer, using all the levers that you've got. And the other thing I'd say about the funding that's available, the basis of funding in Scotland has always been it's a contribution towards the cost of an apprenticeship, towards the training cost of an apprenticeship, because this really shouldn't be seen as an add-on. It's really important to the future of your business to train, recruit your own, train them, and also looking at the skills needed within the workplace. Skills are a vital component part of your business, so the state will make a contribution, but it should be seen like a heavy investment that's for the good of your business.
Okay, I'm just asking Najmi, she hasn't said much for a while, but thinking that we've had a good focus on young people, but also thinking about adult apprenticeships. Are we missing out on new blood? One of the things that we might come to in the Brexit discussion this afternoon is that members are really, really worried about an existing skills shortage and about that getting worse in the future, particularly in construction and care sector jobs. Najmi, is there a role particularly from drawing people in from ethnic minority communities there? And use the mic.
The people that come to us cover all age groups. They're either underemployed or unemployed. Or they're in employment that doesn't suit their capabilities. And most of the people that come to us have a string of qualifications. They just can't access the labour market for a variety of different reasons, including institutional discrimination. They're not necessarily looking for a career in housing, but they see that as an opportunity and for a new career direction. And so it's really important for us here to know that there are people out there with a huge range of skills, knowledge, experience that could be contributing to the housing sector, but unfortunately their talents at the moment aren't being recognised. There is still huge underrepresentation in the housing sector of people from black and minority ethnic backgrounds, and that's been reported on not just in the housing sector, across all sectors, and that's been reported on in various research reports over the years. So yes, I would make a plea here to look at all age groups. The Modern Apprentice Initiative is a fantastic one, but there are people out there of all ages who are desperate to work and are not getting the opportunity currently.
Okay, thanks. Now, probably the last question, is it? Have we got more time? One more, okay. The next most popular question is, how do we get the right mix of apprentices, both in terms of building trades and care services? And looking at our research, it said we're also short of procurement, technology, housing, health and social care, apprentice options. So what can Skills Development Scotland or the Scottish Government do to help out there to get the right mix?
I think there are about 80 apprenticeship frameworks available, modern apprenticeship frameworks available in Scotland, and I think it's a case of becoming familiar with what's actually available there. We've got apprenticeship.scot website, which we are building to be the home of all things apprenticeships in Scotland, and I would urge people to go on that and have a look at what's available. There are a range of government agencies that can help you look at what your needs are for the future. Get in touch with us as well if you want help navigating through things. And I'd say if there's information that you don't find available, let us know, and we're putting much more on about who the training providers are, what areas that they operate in, what sectors they cover, etc. So I would urge you to look at the vast range, because I think things like procurement is not that well known. It's a relatively recent apprenticeship, and we're expecting great things of that, and there's great careers available to individuals too.
Thanks. Mark, do you have anything to come in?
Yeah, the only point I would add to that, I think that's dead right, but I think apprenticeships are unique across post-16 education in that it has to be driven by employer demand, otherwise the jobs won't be there. So, we can put on all sorts of training courses, college courses, university courses, without necessarily the jobs being there. This has to follow the labour market. That sometimes is a bit of a bumpy ride because demand goes up and goes down, so construction's a great example of a sector which is completely cyclical. So just as you're kind of at a point where, you think demand has reached the bottom, it starts building up again, and we know that's happening just now. I think it really is about employers coming forward and, selecting from that range of apprenticeship frameworks that are there, and also coming to SDS and highlighting the gaps. We've established as part of the apprenticeship structure something I think that's really important, which is Scottish Apprenticeship Advisory Board, which is a genuinely industry-led group that's there to shape the delivery of apprenticeships, the development of apprenticeships, and the policy around apprenticeships in terms of what it is industry needs. So through a range of mechanisms, not least the central part about apprentices being employed, I would look for the programme to move around over the years ahead, because that's what it's designed to do and to follow where the demand is.
Right, well, thanks very much for all those answers. I think, have a look at the report. We need a promotional campaign out to our members and also more widely to promote the opportunities in the housing sector. I'd love to see that video going around our schools. I think it's really impactful and it would really get the message across. And we would like to have apprenticeship champions in our own SFHA members, so that those of you who have had successes, we can advertise further and encourage other members to pick up the apprenticeship baton as well. So I think some really good food for thought there, and we'd like to come back next year with an annual housing event that focuses explicitly on apprentices in our sector. So lots of food for thought there. Thanks for all the questions.